So, hello then, welcome back to yet another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spike Knight, and in these podcasts I like talking all things movies and TV and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm talking about the news that there will be four biopics centering around each member of the Beatles that will be releasing in 2027. That will all be releasing in 2027. But just before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello to my viewers, but you prefer to listen to your podcast on Spotify, well, even look, as you can also listen to this podcast on Spotify at Night of the Movies on that platform. And if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check the podcast out visually on my YouTube channel. Yes, you can watch this podcast on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, whatever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and please leave me with some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there are always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. So, let's get into this, shall we? I'm very, very excited about this news. I wasn't planning to make a video on this, but as soon as I read it, my heart was pounding, so I knew I had to make a video. I knew I had to make a video on it as I was reading the news. And the news is, as I've already said, 4 Beatles biopics are in the works, focusing on each member of the band. And first things first, I should say this. I'm a huge Beatles fan, if you haven't guessed already, through my excitement in this podcast. I am a very big Beatles fan because they are my all-time favourite band. I've got a Beatles t-shirt on right now. I've got an Abbey Road poster over there. I've got some Beatles figures back there. I've got Lego Beatles somewhere in this room. You know, I'm such a big Beatles fan. I remember being at a young age and my dad introducing me to the band for the first time, introducing me to their music, listening to songs like Hey Bulldog, Let It Be, Come Together, Noah Man, I'm Looking Through You, just some of my favourite Beatles songs. I mean, there's so many Beatles songs that I love to pieces. Just listen to their music endlessly, and I still do that now today. Once I heard the news that this biopic was in the works, that these 4 biopics were in the works, I put on some Beatles music. But I was on the way back from watching another biopic. I was on the way back from watching One Love Bob Marley, which I'll give my review of in the next couple of days on this channel. But the thing is, well, I'm not going to give my opinion on that film just yet. Although I will say I wasn't buzzing after watching it, and I was on the bus on the way home listening to music. Then I read this news, and as I was reading the news, I began to buzz a lot more. I began to get really, really excited, and then I listened to Beatles music and the entirety of the rest of the way home. I listen to Beatles music every single day of my life, and they have shaped my life in a way that no other music has really done, other than John Williams. But the thing is, I fell in love with the Beatles before I fell in love with John Williams. So it was it was the Beatles which really made me go, wow, I didn't know music could sound like this. And every single time something new Beatles comes out, like I remember when the Ron Howard Beatles documentary, 8 Days a Week, the Torn Years, 1962 to 1966, came out in 2016. I couldn't wait to see that. I couldn't wait to watch it on DVD because I wasn't going to the cinema back then. When Peter Jackson's Get Back docuseries came out in 2021, I was counting down the days till I could watch on Disney Plus, because Peter Jackson was one of my favourite directors, and the Beatles is one of my all-time favourite bands. So the fact that there was this docuseries coming out about the maker of one of my all-time favourite albums, Let It Be, I couldn't wait to watch that. And then last year, when I heard that the last Beatles song was coming out, when I heard they were going to get a new Beatles song, I was counting down the days till that came out. And that song is so... That song holds such a special place in my heart because of how much it means to me, and because of the fact that, in my opinion, it's a perfect song. It's the perfect final Beatles song. And when I heard this news, I could not believe it, because if you asked me should they make a Beatles biopic, before I heard this news, I would have either have said no, they shouldn't. They shouldn't make one film on the Beatles, or I would have said they should make 3 films on the Beatles, make it into a trilogy. Peter Jackson directs all 3 films like he did with The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogies, and make it so that their story is split into 3 different parts. Each film is 3 hours long, directed by Peter Jackson, because he did the Beatles Get Back docuseries. Get someone in there who would understand their story, like Peter Jackson obviously did. He knew what people wanted from the Beatles Get Back docuseries, and so that's what I would have said if you asked me a couple of months ago. Should they make a Beatles biopic? I would have either said no, play it safe and just don't do it, because it would annoy me for the most part, because if they did it as one film, they'd have to miss out so much of the story, or get Peter Jackson to do it and make it into a trilogy, where you make all 3 films together. But that looked like it wasn't going to happen. And when I initially read the news, because I read it on Instagram, I follow Rotten Tomatoes on there, and Rotten Tomatoes came with this little news item saying a Beatles biopic is in the works. I didn't read the number 4 at that point. I didn't read that it actually said 4 Beatles biopics in the works. So when I just read that, I was like, oh no, a Beatles biopic is in the works. It's going to be terrible, isn't it? It's not going to be good at all. Then I went onto Google to look this up straight away after hearing that news, and reading that 4 Beatles biopics were in the works had me tremendously excited. These are now my 4 most anticipated movies for the rest of the decade. I'm very excited to see other films this year, like Dune Part 2 that comes out in a couple of weeks, Mad Max Furiosa that comes out at the end of March, Joker 2 later this year. Next year we're going to get a new Superman film. I'm very excited about all that, and the new Star Wars movies which are in the works. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about all that, but this film has me so excited, or these films have me so excited, should I say, because as reported by Deadline, and you should believe Deadline whenever they report something, as reported by Deadline, in a move that ought to make fans of the Beatles twist and shout, haha, see what they did there, Sony Pictures Entertainment and Oscar-winning filmmaker Sam Mendes and his Neil Street Productions have set plans to make 4 separate theatrical, I love the fact that I love how they are theatrical releases, theatrical films, one on each of the members of music's most famous and enduring band. Mendes will direct all 4 films, and this marks the first time Apple Corps Limited and the Beatles, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and the families of John Lennon and George Harrison have granted full life story and music rights for a scripted film. The fact that Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr granted this gets me even more excited, because if they didn't, I would have just brushed it off straight away, but they're in on it, and they liked the idea. Anyway, as the article continues, Mendes conceived this grand vision. He'll tell interconnected stories, one from each band member's point of view. This perhaps the most ambitious project Deadline has revealed exclusively since our break that Tom Cruise and director Doug Liman are teaming with SpaceX and NASA to shoot a narrative film in outer space. Didn't even know about that. Anyway, the article also says, I'm told they are locking down writers quickly, which means that the scripts for all 4 of these films haven't been written yet, which is fine. If the film's coming out in 2027, that gives them more than enough time. Anyway, all of this came about when Mendes pitched the project in Hollywood, and just about everyone flipped their mop tops for it. SPE's Tom Rothman and Elizabeth Gabler, who gravitate to the most ambitious and prestigious stuff, sparked to the opportunity and won the package. And there's a bit more down here. In addition to directing all 4 films, Mendes will produce alongside his Neil Street Productions, as I've already said. This project springs from an idea of Sam's, which he had over a year ago, so it's been in the works for a year, and it's a testament to his creative brilliance and powers of persuasion that Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Sean Lennon, and Olivia Harrison responded with such warmth and enthusiasm as soon as he spoke with them, said Piper Harris, who is one of Sam Mendes' producing partners. So there's more to this article, and don't read it if you want to know more, and I'm probably have the article up there anyway, probably have screenshots of it. So, yeah, the point that the article makes is that there's 4 of these biopics in the works. I haven't mentioned it in the biopic. I haven't mentioned it in the biopic. I haven't mentioned it in the article, but apparently they're all coming out in 2027. They will all be released in 2027 over the space of 1 year, which has me even more excited, because then you won't forget about what's happened in the last one, and the fact that they're all going to be connected, and the fact that Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Sean Lennon, who is one of John Lennon's children, and Olivia Harrison. I'm not familiar with who Olivia Harrison is. I'm just going to quickly look that up. Olivia Harrison was George Harrison's spouse from 1978 to 2001. I wasn't familiar with who she was, haven't heard of her before, but the fact that she was, you know, in on the project, that she was happy with the idea, has me even more excited. How they've actually got the people involved in the real story, and the people who were close, who were attached to the story of these band members, has me so excited. Because if they didn't, again, I'll just brush it off, but Paul McCartney's in it, and Ringo Starr in it. Ringo Starr is in it as well, and that's all I needed. That's all I needed to get me excited. You can tell how excited I am, because I'm fluffing up my words, I'm going way too quickly, and I've got this huge grin on my face. I haven't been excited about this. I haven't been this excited about a movie in so long. I think since Star Wars The Force Awakens was announced all the way back in 2013, you know, just over 10 years ago now, I haven't been this excited for a movie or movies since then. God, I hope they're good. And the thing is, these movies, you know, they're 4 Beatles biopics which are in the works, and I'm so glad that they're 4 films, by the way, and it's being told by each member, because, you know, if you asked me a couple months ago, should they make a Beatles biopic, I would have said, you know what, you can make a biopic about each one of them. That's the thing. You can make a biopic about Paul McCartney, about John Lennon, about George Harrison, about Ringo Starr, and each one would, if you did it right, could be compelling as the last. And the fact that they're actually doing that, they're doing 4 Beatles biopics, has me so excited. And the fact, and I know I keep saying the fact, but it is fact now, this Deadline has reported it, many other news outlets are also reporting this, the fact that Sam Mendes is directing all 4 films has me even more excited, because Sam Mendes, although he's not one of my favourite directors, he has directed such great movies as American Beauty, Skyfall, and Spectre, the Bond movies, Road to Perdition, which I haven't seen in a very long time, but I remember being really affected by it, Away We Go, which is one of those underrated gems with, you know, starring John Krasinski and Maya Rudolph, which I don't think enough people talk about, Revolutionary Road, which I haven't watched myself, but I know a lot of people like. Empire of Light is the only one of his films I don't like. Empire of Light came out last year, if I remember correctly, and had Olivia Colman in the lead role. Also had a role, Toby Jones in there. It wasn't awful, it just, didn't really touch me in the way I wanted it to. But also, more recently, Sam Mendes directed 1917, which was up against Parasite and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at the 2019 Oscars, and for a long time people thought that was going to win the Best Picture Oscar. Parasite won, but 1917 was a very worthy follow-up in my opinion. I thought that was a very good film, particularly the way it was shot, you know, how it was all done in that one long take. Well, it looked like it was all done in one long take, and it had this, it was really well done. Sam Mendes is one of those directors where whenever a new film of his comes out, you get excited about, you know? And I would have been excited about these projects even if I wasn't a Beatles fan. That's the thing, though. I mean, I am a Beatles fan, so maybe I'm a bit biased here and I shouldn't be saying this, but still, even if I wasn't a Beatles fan, I would be excited about this because it's from Sam Mendes. And whenever Sam Mendes makes something, it's always noteworthy. Although I am very, very excited about this because it's Sam Mendes directing and because his idea was liked by so many people, liked by so many studio executives, and liked by the people who are actually attached to the members who were involved in this story. It was liked by Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. It was met with warmth and enthusiasm, as the article said. Warmth and enthusiasm from them two. And I imagine they've had hundreds of Beatles biopics pitched to them over time. I imagine that's happened to them loads. And the fact that this one made them say yes, or these four made them say yes, should I say, just has me over the moon. It also has me questioning, how are these films going to work? How are they going to be connected? I'm very excited about that. And also, I'm very interested to see who is going to be cast. Because from what I remember, I know Andrew Scott, who most recently did an incredible performance in All of Us Strangers and has worked with Sam Mendes in the past on, he was in Spectre and he was in another one of Sam Mendes' films, which I'm forgetting on the top of my head right now. But Andrew Scott did play Paul McCartney in a BBC TV movie, if I remember correctly. He has played Paul McCartney in the past, so maybe he could play Paul McCartney in these 4 films. I don't know, just an idea. Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who is going to star in Craven the Hunter later this year. Aaron Taylor-Johnson did play a young John Lennon in Noah Boy, all the way back in 2011, if I get my dates correct there. So maybe Aaron Taylor-Johnson could play John Lennon again here, because Aaron Taylor-Johnson is much older now and has become much more of a star after his role in Bullet Train, and he's going to star in The Fall Guy coming out in the next couple of months as well. And so maybe he could play John Lennon. I don't know, but I really don't know who you get to cast these. I don't know who you get to cast the Fab Four and who you get to play the Fab Four. Because you've got to get the casting good. And I reckon with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr involved in the project, I mean, the article, as far as I read anyway, didn't say how involved they were going to be with the project, but I reckon with them involved in the project, in some capacity, they're going to have a say on the casting. And Paul McCartney did criticise the casting of Thomas Bodie Sangster as himself in Noah Boy. So, I wonder how that's going to work. It's going to be very interesting to see who's cast for the film. Very interested, because, they may not even look like them, but still, that's the power of prosthetics and the power of makeup and all that. Because if you see the guy who played Brian May in Bohemian Rhapsody, he looks nothing like Brian May, but he looks identical to Brian May in that film. So, I don't know. I'm very interested about the casting. Slightly worried, if I must also admit. And I'm very, very interested to see how these biopics are going to work. Because will each one of these biopics lead to the same thing happening, lead to the same event? Will each biopic lead to the rooftop performance when the Beatles were recording Let It Be? Will each biopic lead to that? Or will each biopic lead to the death of John Lennon or George Harrison? Or will each biopic lead to the recordings of Free as a Bird and Real Love, which were done in the late 90s, which involved Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr reuniting to make new Beatles music after the death of John Lennon? Or will each Beatles biopic somehow lead to the release of the recording and the release of the latest and last Beatles song, Now and Then? The perfect final Beatles song, in my opinion. How and where will each of these Beatles biopics lead to? That really has me... That has me interested, to say the least. I don't know if interest is the right word there, but I can't think of any other words right now in my excitement. But I'm going to be up all night thinking about this, probably where each Beatles biopic is actually going to lead. Like, is the biopic focusing on John Lennon, is it going to go past his work with the Beatles? Or is it going to go up to his death in 1980? I think that's when he died. Or is it going to go... Or is it just going to go to a certain point when he leaves the Beatles? Same with George Harrison. We're going to see George Harrison's life after the Beatles, because he was still very much connected with Ringo Starr. Ringo and George Harrison played together on a lot of Ringo Starr's music after the Beatles broke up. And as we all know, they reunited when they recorded Free as a Bird and Real Love. So how and where will all these Beatles biopics lead to? It has me very interested. Will they all come together in a certain point? Will it be like you could watch each one of these biopics and it would make one complete story? I'm not quite sure about that. And it's a momentous task which Sam Mendes is doing. I don't think it's ever been done before. Ever. Because there's going to be holes in each one of these stories as well. Like, how is it going to work that they're telling it for each one of the perspectives? I mean, that's the thing which really has me... That's the thing which has me excited as well. That's the other big reason I'm very excited about these 4 films, because that's how you do it. That's how you do a Beatles biopic. You do it from each one of their perspectives. You either do it the way I said, Peter Jackson directing a trilogy of Beatles biopics, or you do it the way which is actually happening. You know, you do it that Sam Mendes is directing a biopic from each one of the perspectives of the Fab Four, of the Beatles. How is that going to work? I don't know, but it has people excited. It got the studio executives excited, which isn't saying a lot. You know, they greenlight some not so great films nowadays, but also it has Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, the 2 surviving Beatles members, excited and enthusiastic about the project. So whatever Sam Mendes has in mind clearly is good, you know, has a lot of promise, and fingers crossed it delivers on that promise. Fingers fucking crossed. I mean, I don't swear on this channel, but man alive, these films have to deliver. They really do. If these films don't deliver, then I think it could be the biggest missed opportunity in cinema history. And I'm not over-exaggerating there. These films have to be good. They have to be brilliant. I got a feeling they're going to be, you know? God, I'm excited for them. Don't know if you could tell. I'm probably a little too excited, but the fact is, I was reading this news on the bus on the way back on my phone, and God, my grin just got bigger and bigger and bigger once I heard everything about it. Yeah, I am worried, slightly worried, as I am with all my most anticipated movies. You know, I'm slightly worried about my most anticipated movie that's coming out this year, which is Furiosa, the new Mad Max one, because we haven't had a second trailer for it. But I'm still tremendously excited for it, and that's how I'm feeling with the 4 Beatles biopics which will be coming out in 2027. I am worried about them, and maybe a little too worried about them right now, because we're still in 2024, we're only in February 2024, but I'm also deliriously excited about them. You'll be hearing me talk about these movies a lot on this channel. We probably won't get much news about them for a while. Once we start hearing, you know, who's going to be cast, seeing some on-set photos, I'm going to be rambling on about them on this channel, because this is good news in my opinion. This is good news. It's made me twist and shout, as the Deadline article said it ought to do. It's made me twist and shout. Come on, baby. And that's my terrible rendition of Twist and Shout by the Beatles. You know, I can't sing to save my life. Plus, another reason I'm very excited about all 4 films is because they're doing the idea of a musical biopic differently. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in my review of the new Bob Marley biopic, the new Bob Marley musical biopic. But I'm kind of getting bored of seeing the same formula with all the musical biopics, and they try to do something different, but they don't always succeed in doing so. Baz Luhrmann's Elvis from 2 years ago notwithstanding, I'm starting to get musical biopic fatigue. But when I heard this news, I was like, oh, you're changing up the formula for a musical biopic. You're trying to do something different. And that got me very excited. That's another reason I can't wait to see these movies. Yeah, I don't know how you do this. I really don't know how you do these films. And these films better be 3 hours each, by the way. This is the last thing I'll say. They better be good. That they better include all the information I want them to, which I know is saying a lot. But I have faith in Sam Mendes. I have faith in Sam Mendes because he is a terrific filmmaker, really he is. I mean, American Beauties is one of those movies I watch every year because I always feel gravitated to go back to it because of the effects it has on me, and I want each 4 of these films to have that same effect on me. I also want each of them to be distinctive because I don't want the Paul McCartney film to be the same as the George Harrison film, you know? But at the same time, you know, Sam Mendes is directing and I'm excited about that. Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr are very happy with the idea, which is even more exciting, and they've got the rights to all this music they could include. I mean, fingers crossed these films work. Fingers crossed, but I have a lot of faith that they will, because this is how you do a Beatles biopic. This is how you tell the Beatles story. You do it in 4 films, you get a great director to do it, and you make it so it's focusing on each member's perspective, and you interconnect them somehow, and hopefully lead it somewhere, you know? But I don't know where you lead it to. It's a task which, you know, it's almost impossible. But it sounds like Sam Mendes is going to make it possible. And as a huge Beatles fan, I cannot wait to see these movies. I cannot wait to see what Sam Mendes is cooking up. 2027 can't come here soon enough. You know, it's 2027, these films coming out. There's Star Wars movies coming out before then. There's a Superman movie coming out before then, which I can't wait to see as well. But these are the films which I will be counting down on all my future calendars to see. Whew. Fingers crossed they're good, eh? Fingers crossed they're good. So yes, that is me talking about my excitement. I can barely see through these glasses, by the way. They're like John Lennon glasses, and I decided to wear them for the end of this podcast, and I can barely see them because they're very dusty. I haven't actually worn them in such a long time. But anyway, I'm going to round off by saying once more that I'm very excited about these movies, and they're my most anticipated films for the next decade, because this is how you do a Beatles biopic, or this is how you do Beatles biopics, you know. This is how you do it. And with Sam Mendes directing, and with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr happy about this project, I am very excited and have a lot of faith. Fingers crossed it all comes together, eh? And fingers crossed I'm not super disappointed in 2027 when these movies come out. Anyway, that's it for the podcast for today. I know this podcast was a bit all over the place, but I just wanted to make this video anyway because of my love of the Beatles and because of my excitement when hearing this news. So let me know your thoughts on this news. Maybe you're put off by this news and you don't want there to be any sort of Beatles biopic. Maybe you think that the news doesn't really sound like what you thought a Beatles biopic would sound like. Whatever your thoughts are on this news that 4 Beatles biopics are in the works, please let me know. And these glasses are falling off. Please let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. I'm going to take these off actually. And like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts coming very soon on this channel. As what he said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast, and I suppose this is it. So I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. These are a bit better, aren't they? Bye for now. Bye.